let's talk about playlisting
All right.
because there was a point in time, and I remember this, probably earlier in Spotify's history, where if you got playlisted on a
Yeah.
major Spotify editorial playlist, that could be life changing for you.
Yeah.
Like overnight, people would be aware of your song, who you were. They
Yeah.
maybe follow you on social media because of that. Uh, what impact do you think playlisting has in 2025? Is it still as
Yeah.
impactful?
I think so. I think just kind of the role of playlisting has evolved and expanded in different ways. It's a little bit less just hit driven from the biggest flagship playlists.
Right.
Like I think like placement on New Music Friday, today's top hits, Rap Caviar, that still can change a career. But um, I think the focus in a good way has become less just about those, big flagship playlists and more about the whole ecosystem, like hundreds, thousands of playlists where, our Fresh Finds playlist where it's all unsigned artists and all by genre, all different countries. I love Pop Rising. I love Lorem. That's a genreless playlist. So it's kind of this whole web of playlisting where,
Mm-hmm.
way more artists get programming exposure because
Mm-hmm.
there's so many more opportunities. Like the big flagships are nice, but um, for a lot of artists who are getting like sustainable revenue on Spotify, it's coming from this broad network of playlisting and programming, and part of that's editorial. We have a
Mm-hmm.
you got to hear earlier from our head of editorial, and um,
She
uh,
was dope.
yeah, her team's amazing. Like the biggest music nerds you'll
Yeah.
ever meet,
You
and the
have to be
coolest.
if you're like on that
Yeah,
team.
and so they're programming those playlists. When we think about like programming on Spotify, a ton of it's the new personalized experiences too, like our AI DJ, where
Mm.
um, in between a few songs, the DJ interrupts and kind of tells you a bit more about the artist and the backstory. Daylist, if you've used Daylist, where like every 4 or 5 hours you get a brand new day list based on what you'd like to listen to in that moment
Mm.
on that day of the week. Um, and mixes, radio, Discover Weekly, Release Radar. The whole set of programming is what I think artists are thinking about more and more,
Yeah.
where it's not just about if I get on New Music Friday, my career is made. If I don't, I'm crushed.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more like, all right, I'm doing really well on radio. Uh, DJs introducing me to new artists. Here's the success I got on Release Radar. My followers are getting that every time.
Mm.
I got on a bunch of these Fresh Finds playlists. I got on Pop Rising, and as songs bubble up, you get on bigger and bigger playlists, which is even better.
Yeah.
But I think that's how it's changed. Like,
Yeah.
I think now there's other places where you have these like flash in the pan
Right.
successes where a song can just go from like zero to crazy, and it's not really that sustainable. And I think Spotify playlists used to be a bit like that. Like if you got on one of the big five, great, and people weren't thinking about the rest.
Yeah.
And now it's really about that kind of like bigger picture of the whole ecosystem,
Right. Right.
which I think is ultimately a good thing.
I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your experience been? What do you think?
I mean, I think it's still important for if you're like a new kind of unsigned independent artist, I think it is still important for you to be in as many places as you can.
Yeah.
Um, can you share any tips on if I'm a new unsigned independent artist, what's the best way to like get into people's algorithms and
Yeah.
like pop up on these playlists?
Yeah. That's the most common question we get. It's tough. Yeah, believe me, I wish every song could get playlisted.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the easy stuff we always say that sometimes frustrates folks because they know they've like pitched
Yep.
through Spotify for artists a bunch, and it doesn't always work out because there's so many people pitching and only so many playlists. Um, I'd say, yeah, always pitch through Spotify for artists at least 7 days before release. Um, do your best to fill in that, you know, short blurb where you can
Hmm.
give a bit more background about the song, the creative process, the
So
promotional
you guys
plan.
actually use that data.
Oh
We're
yeah,
not just like
yeah. I sit with editors all the time. Like they
interesting.
live in that data every
Wow.
time they read that pitch before they listen to any song in their kind of playlist review tool. Before they listen, they're reading it. It's like right there.
Wow.
Selena, our head of editorial, who you met earlier today, she listens to 3 hours of music every day, no matter what, no matter how many meetings she has, everything else. Her whole team's like that. They're truly reading every pitch. Um,
Okay.
and
Because
so,
I'm always like, when I fill that out, who's reading this?
Right.
Like, is this just going to
Right.
some robot,
I
like
know it
an
can.
AI machine at Spotify, just filtering out certain keywords and,
We've
you
had this
know,
idea um, that on the Spotify for artists social handles we should do like a live stream on Instagram one day where we just like show the editors at work, and
yeah,
like we might do that because yeah, it's probably less glamorous than being a music editor sounds.
right.
They're in our playlisting tool all day. They're reading exactly what artists and their teams are writing in their pitch. They're playing the music. They're sending it around to each other. They're considering it for different playlists that they manage, looking at the data. So that's the big thing. The other thing I'd say is like just playlisting isn't everything. And I think a lot of artists have started to realize that, where sometimes it can feel like if you aren't playlisted, that's it. There's like I'm,
Sure,
the majority of streams on Spotify are what we call active streams.
sure.
Like for people who use Spotify for artists, as an artist, you know this metric because we break down streams from programming, from when listeners are asking for Spotify to recommend music or a third party playlist curator to recommend music. So, like, that's all your streams from playlists, radio, mixes, third party playlists, whatever. Active streams are when listeners are actually seeking you out. They're listening to, from your artist profile, from your album page, from their own liked songs, their own playlist.
Mm,
The majority of streams on Spotify, out of the trillions of streams a year, are active streams. It's
mm,
fans choosing what to listen to.
right,
Programming's really important for discovery.
right.
And programming's important. Part of that's editorial. A lot of that's personalized as well. The majority is active streams, and the best way to build that fan base. And a lot of our algorithm, a lot of our editors are data focused, and so um, I know you give tips to artists all the time about how to promote their work.
Yeah.
All the time, indie artists get that initial momentum themselves, starts to show up in the data, starts to get picked up in the algorithm. And then that's when, playlist editors might notice a brand new artist who hasn't had a hit before, doesn't have a lot of streams before. So I think it really starts with that artist driving those active streams, getting those first listeners yourself.
Right.
I think that's what's great about. I think that's like natural to artists. Artists want to take control of their careers,
Right.
and um, I think the ones who are succeeding the most aren't just kind of like waiting to see if playlist editors from any streaming service are going to pick them up, and more, they're hustling, they're promoting, they're getting those listeners. And then that's when, you know, Spotify programming on another streaming service can take you to the next level.
Mm.
Um, uh, and yeah, I think that's like the artists who are doing it best right now.